All right. Hello, everyone. This is Chris at DecoNetwork. Thanks for hopping on today's live session. It's been a while, but today we'll be going over some of the highlighted changes in our last update, 8.507, which went live for all of our users just last week. This update has been in the works for quite some time, so as you can imagine, there are quite a bit of changes included in this release. Lots of them are, you could consider them under the hood, but we will be looking at some of the ones that you can definitely make use of and benefit from on your day-to-day operations. So we're going to get started here in the Help Center, and we're going to run through the release notes for this update. If we do have time at the end, we may open it up for some questions, Q&A. I'm not sure if we will have time, but we'll definitely make use of that time if it's available. So let's scroll down here. At the bottom of the Help Center is where you'll find access to our additional resources. And the release notes section is one of those resources that we make available. So we'll click into that. Here's the article for our latest update, 8.507. And we'll run through each of these. I've got my test account opened up here, and we'll do a quick walkthrough of each of the features that you all can benefit from. So starting off the top here, I would say probably most of you may have already noticed this, but we'll definitely run through it. It's definitely a time saver, the ability to reposition line items within either a quote or an order by dragging and dropping them. So it's really useful when you're trying to, for example, move a line item down from the bottom of the order to, let's say, the top. Previously, moving a line item required positioning that line item one position at a time. So if you could imagine if you had a 30 line item order, to get an item from the bottom to the top was pretty time consuming. So let's run through what that looks like now with the drag and drop feature. I'll go ahead and open up my business hub here. And hopefully I've got a test order with a few line items in it. So let's take a look at this one with a high order value. Well, it's got just one line item, but what we'll do is we'll copy that line item a couple times to give ourselves some positions to move through. And I'll just go in and change some of these colors so that we can differentiate between each of the line items. So again, the old option is still here, and you'll find that under the Actions button next to the far right-hand side of each line item. If you click on that Actions button, you still have the old move up and move down options, which if we, let's say, move the line item 1, the yellow colored shirt, down to the bottom, we can see it takes a few clicks, 3 clicks to get it all the way down to the bottom. Whereas using the new drag handle, which is this little icon here on the far right-hand side to the right of the Actions button, I can now quickly click that section, hold my mouse, and then drag that up to the top. You see that blue line denotes where the line item is going to drop into. So I can place that blue line all the way at the top and then let go of the mouse to drop it exactly in that position. So again, it's a big time saver, especially if you're usually working with larger quotes and orders. This is really going to help to streamline that process of resorting line items. And it comes handy. I know a lot of people use the divider option to also differentiate between different pricing options for your customer. So things like the divider can also be dragged up and down. So really just overall a great way to save some time when you and your team are creating those quotes and orders. Okay, let's jump on to the next highlighted feature here. This is also in Business Hub, and it's a new option that we have to access the original customer provided artwork before having to move that order into production. So this feature came about from users who want access to the artwork that's uploaded through the designer without having to move the order into production. The main example is on sites that have the quote only mode enabled. In that case, in order to even get the order into production, you would first have to convert that quote into an order by approving the quote. And what we were getting feedback is that you wouldn't necessarily want to approve the quote until you've actually seen the source artwork and made a determination as to whether that artwork is of good enough quality for you to proceed with the order. So we do have this new option, which you can find within the Actions button of a line item. Clicking that option, you'll see the new link for Design Breakdown. And this opens up a pop-up which displays the designs that have been uploaded by the customer. In this case, it looks like the line item I've got here is using a stock design. So that doesn't necessarily have a source file, but let me see if I can upload a file quickly here. And we'll take a look at how that comes through to the Designs Breakdown pop-up. So I've uploaded that design now here through the designer. And let's click back into the Design Breakdown. And we'll see now we get a list of which file was uploaded and a link to download that source artwork. So it's, again, that original file that the end consumer uploaded into the designer. And that's useful, again, if you want to review the quality of that source file and make a determination, maybe give some feedback to your customer whether that artwork needs to be adjusted prior to them approving the quote and moving it to the order stage. All right, so that one's definitely going to help out with, especially for those users that have their site in quote only mode, but they still want a way to review the artwork that's been submitted prior to moving into the order stage. All right, let's jump into the next improvement here. Let me just make sure there's anything else related to Business Hub since we're already in here. Okay, yeah, we've got a couple that we can cover actually here in the Business Hub. So one of them is, it has been a request for quite some time, so it's great to finally have it, and that's the ability to apply coupon codes and gift certificates to the Business Hub. Historically, those two marketing options have been limited to only being able to be applied through the web store. Coupon code fields and gift certificate fields were displayed on the checkout summary page before the customer proceeded through the billing address step, the shipping step. And so we now have these two options to apply those through the Business Hub. These are going to be most useful in cases where you're helping a customer fulfill an order. Maybe for whatever reason, they're not doing it themselves through the web store, but they may have had a coupon code that you sent through an email marketing campaign, or someone may have purchased a gift certificate for them. And so you now have a way to apply those directly through the Business Hub. You also now have a way to remove coupons from an order, which was not previously possible. So just in the same way that you can apply a coupon, it is now possible to remove a coupon from an order as well. Okay, so let's take a look at the next change here. So that's applying coupon codes and gift certificates through the Business Hub. Let's take a look at applying a different billing address when applying a payment. So this actually applies system-wide. This is not limited to just the Business Hub. This option can be used both through through the Business Hub as well as through the customer account area, which is the area of the system that your customers get sent to when, let's say, you send a quote to them for approval. It's also available directly through the web store. So if someone's going through your website, customizing some product, adding it to the cart, and then completing their order that way, the option will also be available there. And so let's take a look at it through the Business Hub. The option will be similar across all of the different parts of the system that I mentioned, but since we're here in the Business Hub, we'll take a look at it here. So let me save the changes that I've applied to this order here. And let me double check if I have a payment method enabled. Okay, I've got PayPal. I'm going to need, yeah, that should be fine. So I'm going to jump into my payments tab for the order that I'm working on. And if I go to choose add payment, and I choose my credit/debit card option, which is going through my primary gateway, PayPal in this case, I have the same fields I had before, which was the card information, name on the card, card number, security code, expiration date. The new option is the one listed here at the bottom. Use a different address for payment. And when this is enabled, you get some additional address fields. This is really useful when you have a customer who's making a payment maybe with a company card, where the address being used as the billing address on their order is maybe different than the address that's associated with the card that's being used for payment. So it's really common in situations where you're dealing with company accounts versus individual customers. But it's definitely going to be really handy. We've gotten a lot of requests for this feature over time, so it's great to finally have that in place. And so when it's enabled, the system will use whatever information you've inputted here instead of what you see under the customer details section. Okay, just like I mentioned, that will also be available through the customer account area. Let's see if we can quickly jump in and take a look at what that would look like. So here I am in my customer account area for that same order. If I were to go into the pay order screen, again, I'll get the same fields as before. Down at the bottom, I'll have that use different payment address, different address for payment option. And the last section, which we'll skip for now, is the web store checkout process, but we would see that exact same option listed there as well. Okay, so that's separate billing details for payment. Let's jump back up here to the top of the release notes and start taking a look at some of these features, which are focused more around the admin area and configuration settings. So the next one here on the list is related to the campaigns feature. And it's a fairly straightforward one. Some time ago, I believe, I can't recall if it was last year or the year before, but we added the option for campaign sites to list more than one product. Initially, when the campaigns feature launched, it was limited to a single product. So we do now have support for campaign sites to list more than one product. The way those have been listed since we added that additional functionality is to just display the thumbnail of the product and have the end customer switch between the available products by clicking the thumbnail of each of the items that's been listed on the campaign. We did get feedback that what was also missing was the ability to show the product name. So not just the thumbnail of the product, but the actual product name. And so we've added that as an option now when you're configuring your campaign. I don't have any campaigns here on this account. Let me see if I can get a different account opened up here so you can see this feature. Okay, so once I'm in the campaign settings screen, down here at the bottom is where you'll find the new option for show product names. And setting that to yes just displays the name of each product right below that thumbnail that we display. So it's just some additional information that you can add for your customer. While we're here on this screen, this is a change that I don't think made it onto the release notes, but it is also new in 8.507. And that's the description field for campaigns is now a rich text editor. Before this was just a plain text field, which didn't allow you to, for example, bold text or make text larger. And so we've now switched this to the rich text editor that you see, for example, in the drag and drop website page editor, if you drop in a text widget. And so it's really easy now to give that campaign description some style, whether that's bold, italicize, underline, or even changing the color of the text. So that should come in pretty handy for the campaign sites. Okay, let's see. Next change down the list here is an option to. So let's take a look. It's related to inventory. The current options for inventory are to either not allow the product to be purchased at all, by not allowing it to be added to the cart, or to not essentially allow the item to be added to cart, which would mean the item is back ordered if you don't have any on-hand inventory for it. So the new option that we've added is essentially marking blank products as closing out. And what that will allow you to do is allow your customers to purchase whatever inventory you still have in place. But once inventory runs out, then it reverts to not allowing purchase. So it's essentially only allowing purchase of whatever inventory you have specified as having on hand. If we take a look at our product section here, and we open up one of my products, we'll jump into the inventory tab. And this is where you'll find that new option. So not only can you enable inventory for a product, you can mark it as a closeout product. And that'll make it so that the only SKUs, the only size and color combinations that can be purchased are ones that have inventory on hand set for them. So if I were to save this change, the only items that are going to be able to be purchased for this style here are going to be the Admiral Blue, which are the ones that I've marked as having some inventory here in my warehouse. There's a related change, which is part of this feature here. Let me see if I can open up the product page for this item. Let's see, I may have to set some inventory for a different color. Or maybe, let me just set, yeah, so I'm going to turn on some stock for the aquatic blue as well. And we're going to say that I have 5 of each of these. All right, once this change completes, we're going to refresh our product page. and I'll show you the feature that I'm referring to. So let's say I were to choose my Admiral Blue here and then choose my small size as the size I want to order. What the system now does is it identifies which SKUs, which size and color combinations are not available. So since I've chosen small as the size that I'm looking for, the system now lets me know that aquatic blue isn't available in small. And that's the case because I don't have any stock for that SKU. So previously, the system essentially allowed you to still choose those combinations. And so now it's really easy for your consumer to see which of those combinations are not available. And that could be whether you have the closing out feature enabled, or it also works with that disabled. There are some cases where the supplier themselves, like let's say Sanmo or Alpha Broder, don't make certain colors available in certain sizes. And so this little feature here helps in those situations as well. Okay, let's take a look at the next feature. So that's inventory closeout items. Next is an enhancement to purchase orders. We now have an ability to essentially create notes, a notes field against a purchase order. And this could be used for internal communication between your team. Purchase order is not typically something that you send back to your customer, so it's really for your own reference, or I guess between your supplier as well. If you're working with a custom supplier that doesn't use live ordering and you actually forward them the purchase order PDF that DecoNetwork generates, that would be a great way to supply some additional notes as well. I know quite a bit of licensees that use the purchase order feature not necessarily for blank product sourcing. They may use it for more for kind of outsourcing, right? They may have, for example, a screen print order and they don't do screen print in-house. And so they'll use the purchase order feature to track them ordering that service from another fulfillment center, which is not necessarily the intended use case for purchase orders, but we do see it quite a bit. So just having a notes field associated with purchase orders is pretty helpful. Let's take a look at that. So I'm going to jump into my purchase order screen. I see I've already got a purchase order here. And if we edit that purchase order, down at the bottom, we now have this notes field, which you can add into and make any changes to. That will display on your purchase order PDF. If we look at the release notes here, we're including the snippet, the code snippet, which you would need to paste in if you already have customized your purchase order template. For example, you may need to add this snippet back into yours to start displaying that note content. Cool. Let's take a look. The next option down, we're going to jump back into campaigns, which we looked at earlier. So let me switch over to my separate site where I've got some campaign sites active. Let's see, these are quite old campaigns, so I'm not sure if the site will still load, but let's take a look. This is a global setting, which you're going to find under the website section of your admin area, and then you'll click into campaign settings. And it's the option all the way at the bottom, show shopping cart. We're going to switch that over to yes, and then see if we can load our campaign site. Full stores, full affiliate stores, or even your main site displays this little cart icon in the site header. And when you click on that, a little side pop-up opens up that displays whatever items you have in your cart. So the new option that we've added is the ability to display that same shopping cart icon on campaign sites, which makes sense now that we have the ability to add more than one product to a campaign site. So that way the user can track which items they've already added to the cart and proceed to checkout from there. So we won't be able to preview it. Even the newest campaign that I have is quite old here, so it's not going to fully load the site. But yeah, we can just kind of preview it here on my main site. It's essentially the same functionality. You'll see the cart icon appear in the header, and clicking that cart icon will open up the sliding cart list. So definitely a good improvement for campaign sites. We do have, I think, a couple references here to changes in our API, specifically the order management API. We won't go too much in depth into that. Those features are not ones that most users get into, and so we won't bother with going into the details, but essentially we've added additional information that can be pulled into those APIs. And in this case, specifically the source file. So similarly to the second feature we looked at with design breakdown and accessing source files before moving a quote into the order stage, the source files are now also available through the API. Okay, let's see, we've got an enhancement here, looks like in the website pages editor for the request to quote widget. So let's jump into the website page editor and take a look. So I'm going to manage my site here and jump into edit website pages. And I'll click into my request to quote page. Let's see, I currently have this page turned off, so let me switch that to on and save that change. Okay, so let's go ahead and edit the request to quote widget. We've got the fields section here, which we can expand out to show the options. The new one that we've added is the ability to show the descriptions of custom fields. And this is in reference to customer fields, custom customer fields. If we jump into our main settings page and click into customer settings, customer fields, you'll get an idea of what fields we're referring to. So these are by default things like your billing fields, first name, last name, email address, so on and so forth. You do also have the ability to add your own custom fields. So if we were to come in here, we see people use these for all kinds of different purposes. Sometimes it's something as simple as how did you hear about us? Other times it could be a way to collect information for either corporate stores or school stores, information about how orders need to be distributed or things like that. So these are definitely useful, and you've always had the ability to set a description for those fields, which does display already through the normal website checkout, but we did not have an option to display that through the request to quote page. So this option here now allows you to display those descriptions here as well, which should be pretty helpful for sites where you're kind of funneling the customer through to submit a quote request rather than submitting an order. Okay, next feature down. Oh, this is a really cool one. This is related to decorated products, and it has been a frequently requested feature. If we take a look at my decorated products, I've got just a few here, but I've got one that I think we can use that as an example. So if I configure the product, we've added a new screen here under listing image. You've always been able to upload a replacement listing image if you didn't like the default product image that the system generates, which is a mock-up taking the image of the blank product that was used and then overlaying the graphic that was applied through the designer. If you didn't like whatever that image was, you could always upload a replacement image. The new option we've added here is to allow you to choose between the different views that you've decorated, or even blank ones, even ones that haven't had any decoration applied to them. Choose which view you want to use as the product image. So if we edit this decorated product, you'll see that I've applied decorations to both the front and the back of the product. The way the system has handled that up till now is it always uses the image of whichever view is first and has decorations applied to it. So in the case of this product, that would have been the front view. If this was left to default, the system would consider the front view the first view on the product that has a decoration on it. In this case, if we take a look at the product, the front view isn't too exciting, right? I do have a design on there, but it's a small left chest with just some text, embroidered text. So really the back design is a little bit more captivating. And so, I may want to showcase the back design over the front design, even though the front is the first decoration area. So that's what this option now allows us to do, is go in and pick for each decorated product, which view do I want to feature? In this case, I'm going to feature the back view. And that flows throughout the entire site. So if we go into my products page, and let's see, I actually don't know if I have my decorated products page on. There it is. So it does flow through all the parts of the system. So here we are in the listing page where we're browsing for different products, and the system is using the back view as the default image. Similarly, when I click into the product, the system starts with that view already selected. So it starts me off looking at the back view. I could always go in and switch to take a look at the front, but it'll automatically select whichever one I set as the featured view. Okay, so really handy feature. Again, there are a lot of cases where you may not want to highlight or feature the first view on a product. It's oftentimes on things like sport or school spirit wear sites where the front isn't, maybe that small of chest, and you want to feature a larger back design. So that's a really great feature that's going to come in handy for a lot of our users. All right, let's keep going down the list here. This next feature is something that is worth mentioning, even though it's not something that you use typically on your day-to-day workflow, but it is an important change that may affect some of our users. So a few months ago, our users started receiving emails that there was some kind of vulnerability to their sites, and what it distilled down to is that their site had the ability to be embedded through an iframe. And the concern with that is you could embed a site through an iframe and then overlay on top of that embedded site some kind of invisible buttons or invisible links. And the idea behind that vulnerability is the end user thinks they're looking at the site that's in the background, but there's that kind of hidden content on top. And so, they may click links that you weren't intending them to. So to mitigate this, by default, we now disable embedding of DecoNetwork sites. And it's only in cases where that you have a use case where the site needs to be embedded, you would want to go in and turn on the feature. So that new feature is going to be found under domain settings. So the same screen where you would go to apply a custom domain for your site. is where we've placed the new allow embedding in iframe option. So again, the biggest change here to keep in mind is by default, all sites no longer allow embedding by default unless this option has been enabled for them. Again, that probably will not affect most of our users. Most of our users aren't embedding their site somewhere else, but in the event that you are, if you haven't made that change, you'll want to review your site and make sure it's still working. If not, you may need to enable that option to allow embedding in iframes again. Okay, let's take a look at the next highlighted feature here. This one is also related to inventory / purchase ordering. And let's see, to explain the feature, I can just kind of go over the scenario where it may be used. The feature itself is the ability for incoming orders to be fulfilled by inventory or stock that is on order. So what that would look like is, let's say you have a Gildan 2000 and maybe you like to keep both white shirts and black shirts in the Gildan 2000 in stock, but maybe you ran out of mediums, right? And let's just say, for the sake of this example, that you're out of mediums in white, but because you're out, you placed a live order through the Business Hub for 50 pieces of small, sorry, I think I said medium white Gildan 2000s. So the system knows that you have those 50 on order, and they're coming soon. But let's say that same day you receive an order for 15 white medium Gildan 2000s. There was that kind of gap there where the system knew you had 50 coming in, but because you don't have them yet, the system couldn't pull from that inventory, that on order inventory. It could only pull from inventory that's already there, right, that you've marked as received into the warehouse. So this new feature allows the system to be aware of those quantities on order. And so that order that came in today for the 15 pieces could pull in from those 50 that I don't quite yet have at the warehouse, but I know they're coming soon. And it's worth mentioning, I think it's come up a few times since the release, that users they know they have those, let's say, again, we'll use the same example. They know that they have those 50 on order, and by the time they receive the PO, let's say only 45 end up going to the on-hand inventory. And we have had a few questions like that where our users aren't sure where those last 5 went, and it's likely because of this feature. So if you have this feature enabled, those 5 may have gone to an order that you received from a customer. And so they may have been allocated to the order instead of being allocated to be an on-hand inventory. So it's definitely something to double check, see what you have that option set to, and make a determination whether you want to have the system continue working the way it used to, or if you want to enable this feature and have the system pull from on-order quantities for incoming customer orders. All right, we've already looked at these two: separate billing, address for payment, removing and adding coupon codes and gift certificates through the Business Hub. We're down to the last few changes here. Yeah, this next one is also a pretty important one, just because we have received this as a feature request quite frequently. And it's a feature that we actually used to have before we changed to the drag and drop editor for the website, the newer website framework. And the feature itself is the ability to display a help pop-up or help window in the design tool. So let's take a look at what it looks like and how you can customize it. So I'm going to come into my website page editor, open up the designer page, and click into the designer widget to open up the settings. Down at the bottom, we have the new help pop-up section, and I can enable show help pop-up to display the icon. And you can see it's the question mark here on the very bottom right-hand side of the designer. So let me save and publish that change so we can take a look at the live site and see how that pop-up displays, or the information that it displays. Okay, so if I click that help pop-up, you'll see the content that we've generated by default. Now, I would say it's important to understand that DecoNetwork is a standardized platform, and we have users that use the platform in many different ways. So you may find that some of this content doesn't apply to you or needs to be adjusted. So definitely feel free to, and we'll take a look at how to adjust it, but feel free to come in and make any necessary adjustments to this help content. This is just kind of, some basic starting points for how to use the designer that we determined on our end. But for example, when we are explaining the process of adding text to a product, we're listing all of these decoration processes like rhinestone template, embroidery, printing, transfer, screen printing, which may be processes that you don't have enabled on your system. And so potentially displaying that this information here to your customer may be confusing, right? So not only that, this is using the default theme colors unchanged, and your site may look a lot different, right? You may have rounded off all of the buttons through the options in the style editor. You may have changed the color of the designer from black to red. And so that's another case where you may find that you're going to have to come in here and edit this content for it to make sense to your user. But there's a lot of good basic information, and some of this you can definitely reuse. Some of it you might have to change. But it does go through each of the options available in the design tool. All right, so let's take a look at where to edit that content. The designer help content is part of what we consider the commercial terms for your account. So it is a global setting. The same content is displayed across all of your web stores. Here from the admin area on the left-hand side, we would click into settings and then choose commercial terms. So once we're there, down at the bottom is where we're going to find our online designer help page. And we can go ahead and press edit to see the default content. If we want to go in and make an adjustment, we need to enable the override default content option. And that's going to allow us to come in here and start making changes. So you could make changes both to the text if you need to, or images. Let's say like this image here, for example, that we looked at earlier. I may need to swap that out for one that shows only the processes that I have enabled on my account. So I may delete that image, and then using the toolbar, I can choose the image option, choose to browse the server, and this opens up the file browser, which I can use to upload an alternate image. So I'm just going to upload an example for now, but you would obviously use the correct image there. So let me pick that image. We'll get the URL for that. And we can paste that in. So, okay, that's quite large there. We may have to adjust the size. Let's go with a percentage here. let's see, we'll lock the aspect ratio. That should do the trick. Not quite. Let's see, I think it's a square image, so try that. There we go. So you can obviously upload your own replacement images, but it's definitely going to be helpful for your end customers to have some additional feedback. We do get feedback from our licensees that the designer can be a little bit cumbersome to use, and so part of that is just informing the customer how to use the available features, and so this will be pretty helpful with doing some education for your customer on how to use the tools that are available to them. Okay, we've got one last feature to take a look at, and then we should be able to jump straight back into maybe one or two questions. I see we do already have a question here in the chat from Doug. Hey, Doug. I'll go ahead and take a look at your question once we're done going through this last feature. Okay. So this last feature is related to working with company accounts. I'm going to jump back into my business hub for this. And let's see if I do have a company account. It only has one contact, so let me go in and add an additional contact. And yeah, I'll just assign one of my existing customers to be a contact of this company. Okay, and I'm going to upload some designs to each of these accounts so that we can take a look at what this new design sharing option allows between different contacts that are assigned to the same company. Okay, so each of those contacts now has at least one design associated with their account. So what I'll do is I'll choose John and I'll create an order for him. And I'll go in, add some product, choose a blank item, and then open that blank item up into the design tool. I'll choose DTG printing as the option. And so you'll notice that even though both John and, I guess they're both Johns, so even though they both have designs associated with their accounts, I can only see the designs that John Doe uploaded. Whereas we've gotten feedback that when the contacts are within the same company, you want access to everybody's designs, not just that particular contact. So let's go back into the company record. If we come in here and click into account details, and we now enable allow design sharing, we'll see how that affects the behavior. So I think I need to create a new order. So let me close out of that one. We'll create a new order for John Doe. We'll do the same. We'll add a line item, select a blank product. And this time when we go back to add design, let's see, I'm not seeing it. So I may have to refresh my business hub. Let's try that. And let's also double check that those designs went through. So we've got John has this design. Okay, so again, we're going to create an order for John Doe. Add a products, choose that blank, open it up into the design tool. And so this time we see the My Upload section that we did before, which were just the designs for John Doe. we now have this additional section for company uploads. And we can see that it actually breaks it down by contact. So I can see all of the company uploads, or I can expand that down and see just the ones from John Milton, who's the other John that had those other two designs. So this definitely going to fill a need. We did get this request quite a bit for the ability to have shared designs across the same company account. So we're continually making additional improvements to the company's feature, and this is one that I think is going to help quite a bit of our users out. So let's jump back to the release notes. Yeah, that's the last feature highlighted here in the release notes. Again, this update was a long time coming, so there are a lot of other improvements included in this update that we didn't have a chance to highlight in the release notes. But overall, you should be noticing definitely an increased stability. There have been enhancements to reordering items, whether that's your customer reordering through their customer account portal, or you using the add previously ordered product function through the Business Hub when creating a new order for a previous customer. And so there should be a lot more consistency. The system should also now be notifying you when there will be an inconsistency, which can happen, for example, when you've changed the DPI settings for a decoration process. So you should at least be a little bit more aware of when things may not be consistent and why that may be. All right, so that's 8.507. We have a few more minutes, so yeah, we'll definitely take a look if anyone has any questions. I do see one here from Doug. If anyone else has questions in the meantime, feel free to pop those in the chat, and we'll see if we can get to them in the time that we have available. So Doug's question is around production time, and he's asking if there are plans to allow setting a different processing time or production time per decoration method, per decoration process. That is a request that we do get pretty frequently. If we take a look at the behavior that's available now, the system allows setting a default production time, which applies across the board, both for all products as well as for all decoration methods. That can also be overridden at the product level. So if we go in here, we jump into a blank product configure screen, and we click into the shipping and production tab. Down at the bottom, we have the ability to, let's see here, I think it's, yeah, down here at the bottom, we have the ability to override the production time. So we do have plans to enhance that functionality. Like I said, it's a request that we get quite a bit. It's definitely not something that's currently in the works. If you haven't already done so, Doug, I would recommend to take a look at the feature requests board. Search for that request. I'm pretty sure we already have it in there. If it's in there and you haven't already done so, add your vote of support for that functionality. The development team does look through that feature request board, and they take a look at those features when processing or considering what enhancements may go into a future update. For the most part, they do look at demand, so requests with higher number of votes do have a more likely chance of being implemented, but that's not the only factor that's used to make a decision there or a consideration. So yeah, I would say just definitely give that feedback, but I think it's definitely something that you'll see down the line. Appreciate the question, Doug. Let's see, we've got Michael in the chat as well. And he wants to know, he's pretty new to DecoNetwork, and he wants to know if there's a way to make a quote in the Business Hub using one design applied to multiple products? Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look at what the fastest way to do that would be. So we can use this quote here as an example. So I've got my men's product here. I've got design placed onto the front decoration area. The quickest way to apply that to a second line item would be to copy the first line item. So I can copy that. And now I can select a different blank product. So I can change which blank product I've used on that line item. Maybe change the color to match the color on the men's option. And as long as the decoration areas being applied are the same, that design will translate. So here it is on the women's product. Same design was applied in the same way, and all we had to do was copy the line item and then click back into the blank product field and swap which blank we were using. So we could try that one more time with, let's say, the youth style of that same product. I don't know if that one will work. I don't know if it has the same decoration areas, but let's try it just to see how it would be handled in the event that the product doesn't have those decoration areas. It looks like in this case it did still apply. And one thing that you'll notice in the case of the youth product here, the decoration area is smaller than the one used on the men and women's products. So the system did reduce the size of that graphic slightly. If we take a look at the men's, it was 581, and on the youth, it's 2.29 wide. So it did reduce that quite a bit. If you wanted that size to stay the same, you could go back in and make that adjustment to increase the size so that it's same dimensions across all of those products. But this should at least save you some time in terms of not having to re-upload or reselect the design across each of those line items. Yeah, so overall, it's definitely possible. There's no kind of way to create one design and then tell the system apply this design to these 50 products, but it is possible. I think copy line item is definitely your best option. And follow up from Michael, will quantity discounts apply to both line items? It depends which quantity discounts you're referring to. We have volume discounts, which typically people use to apply a discount to the blank. We have price table quantity breaks, which would apply if the same decoration method is used. In this scenario here, where I've used DTG as my decoration method, I would not get a price table discount for this. So the only process that gets a price table discount across multiple line items is screen printing, because in that case, the system has a way to link products by the fact that it's aware that these 3 line items use the same screen. For something like DTG or even embroidery, the system doesn't really have a way to know this is the exact same design. And that's definitely something that we're looking at. That's actually the #1 feature request for us right now, is for the ability to discount the same design across multiple line items for processes other than screen printing. So it's definitely something that we're looking at. Again, it's not something that's actively in the works, but you'll definitely see improvements to that area down the line. Appreciate that question, Michael. That is all the time we have for today's session, so we'll end it here. I appreciate everyone who tuned in. We will make this recording available on our YouTube channel. So if you want to go back and review anything that was discussed, check back in on the YouTube channel, and you can go back to any areas that you may have missed if you were busy throughout the session. If we do have any anyone tuning in who is not yet a DecoNetwork licensee, I would recommend checking out our website, DecoNetwork.com. We do have an option there to book a tour, and that's the best way to get some feedback from one of our client services representatives and see if DecoNetwork can be a good fit for you. All right, guys, we'll see you on the next one. Take care.